So I recently just finished my first ever playthrough of Detroit Become Human. I didn't have any expectations going into the game, and it very quickly became one of my all-time favorite games I have ever played. The characters, the story, the gameplay, everything about it left an impact on me, honestly. It made me think, it made me question certain things, it's an unbelievable game. So I decided I was going to do a character tier list. So that is what we are here for today. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to make my own. This is one that I randomly found with around 20 some characters. So I'm sure some are going to get left out, unfortunately, but I will try to bring them up if I remember to. So let's get into it. Starting off with Adam. Interesting that Adam is first. Maybe this is like alphabetical or something. I'm not sure. But Adam, listen, Adam was a cool addition to the game. The dynamic between him and Rose, his mom, you know, she was very much like wanting to help the androids, whereas him being younger, I kind of expected him to be on the android side, but he was completely anti-android at first, and he started to come around. I will say, like, I've played through this game one time. I know there are endless different chances and things to happen. There's different outcomes and things like that, so I can only speak from my personal experience. But Adam definitely started to come around towards the end, and yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if there are any bad characters in this game. I think that everybody added a little bit of something to the game. So as for Adam, I'm gonna say he's okay. We didn't get to see him a ton, whatever. He wasn't like a huge addition. He wasn't a bad thing, like just okay. And then right off the bat, we have Alice. Okay, so I want to point this out to give a little bit of context as to how I played the game. So the first night, I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know what was going on, but obviously early in the game, you see Alice, you see Kara, and you see Todd, and Todd is tripping off the red ice and everything, and like very, very, very bad situation for a young girl to be in. And from pretty much the beginning, I made it my number one goal. I cared about all the characters. I wanted the best outcomes for everybody, but my number one priority was to protect Alice because I wanted to get her to safety, whatever that meant, and for her to be able to grow up and have a better life. Now, obviously, there was a little bit of a plot twist towards the end of the game where, spoiler alert, I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you've already played the game. If you don't want spoilers, then I would turn the video off right now. But huge plot twist, big enough to where I stood up and walked away. Whoa! What? I feel like there were little signs here and there early in the game. It basically showed that she was an android, like in one of her drawings, but it was just like you were so wrapped up in the beginning and trying to figure out what's going on that you weren't thinking about that. You weren't paying attention to that kind of thing. And like I said, there were little things here and there, but I was like, there's nothing big enough for me to actually like question whether or not this is, you know, a possibility. So yeah, as far as Alice, her character, like, you know, it was cool to have her and Kara and trying to figure all that out. Alice herself, like, she was a good character. We didn't get to make decisions or anything like that, but she definitely added something to the story for sure. And okay, immediately, we're not even going to waste time here. I'm not even going to talk about that worst character in the game. And then we have one of the first deviants that is brought up in the game. This is Carlos Ortiz's deviant, kind of one of the first like big scenes where you have to start figuring out things. And I will say that although he's not in the game a ton, this was kind of the start that it kind of planted the seed a little bit of like, okay, which side am I gonna fight for here? Am I gonna fight on the human side or am I gonna fight for the android side? Because obviously he was getting abused and it caused the reaction and everything to happen, and he snapped. Obviously he did a bad thing, right? But he was trying to fight for himself. He knew that he was worth more than just being a robot and getting abused used over and over again. That definitely planted that little seed. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this after all. And so although he's like not in the game a lot, the interrogation room scene was insane. That was intense. And yeah, he's a very important character in the game, although you don't see him a ton. I think because of like how important he is to the beginning of the game, he should go to the back of good at least, because it does start to kind of plant that seed, like I said. And then we have Connor, the homie Connor. All right, so I will say also as I go through this list, there is favorite at the top of this list, which I am going to save for one character and one character only. I know people can say I have tons of favorites or whatever, but I think for a tier list like this specifically, it should be saved for one character. It's going to be tough to decide. I kind of have my decision already made, but I will say Connor and my favorite are like this, okay? It's super, super close. Absolutely phenomenal character. Everything about his story and stuff. The relationship with him and Hank, like it's all phenomenal. It's all phenomenal. I can't even talk. Trying to decide if I was going to go strictly for just getting the job done like Connor was designed for, or if I was going to kind of let him start to become a deviant himself and realize that he is actually more than just an android. Was pretty gnarly decision to make, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna go through and say everything that I did in the game or whatever. If you would like to check all that out, there will be a playlist that pops up with all of my Twitch VODs from playing through this game. But yes, Connor and my ultimate like favorite character in the game, like I said, they're very close. Connor is going to go in the front of Amazing. However many characters we have in Amazing, he will be at the front of it for sure. And I'm sure that's going to piss a lot of people off, but this is just my opinion. All right, I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just my opinion. And then we have Gavin. This dude was just actually really annoying. He just thought he was better than everybody, and it was kind of it was annoying. Honestly, like I said, I thought there weren't any bad characters. I don't see, like, I get why he was in the game, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like he didn't really add anything. He was just a nuisance, really. So I'm gonna actually put him in bad. Yeah, I that's all I got to say. And then the homie Hank. Okay, so Hank is a very interesting one, because for the longest time at the beginning of the game, I just couldn't do anything right between trying to get him and Connor on the same page. It felt like everything that I tried to do to get them at least neutral was just wrong. And so I just decided I'm going to change my approach, which I don't know if I really did a whole lot, but I was like, okay, I might not get this perfect, but I'm going to do my best to try and resolve something here. And ultimately, by the end, it worked. Connor and Hank were pretty tight by the end of my playthrough. Man, just figuring out Hank's story, figuring out why he was kind of turning into the person that he was, like, it was very, very interesting. And it was cool to see, at least through my playthrough, that by the end, he was kind of like, all right, let's do this for the android. Man, like, he was convinced that they weren't all bad, and yeah, that was pretty cool to see. Hank was an amazing character. He's gonna go right behind his homie Connor. And then this is the warehouse android. So this is when all the members of Jericho, or not all the members, but the main members of Jericho went to try and get supplies and stuff for those that were sick and hurting and stuff. And this is a guy that, it looked like he was gonna call backup security or whatever. We had to decide whether or not we were going to bring him with us to Jericho or not. Looking back on my playthrough, of probably the top like 2 or 3 regrets that I have, this is one of them. I decided not to bring him along with Marcus and North and all of them back to Jericho. Morally, like, I wanted to. I definitely wanted to, but I was afraid that, like, he had the ability, all he had to do was just kind of say, hey, this is where they are, this is where Jericho is, and he would have gotten everybody arrested, and Jericho would have been found sooner, and all that sort of stuff. And so that's why I decided not to bring him along. It's not that I didn't want to, I just was afraid that the cover of Jericho would be blown. And I learned later on that could have been a very detrimental mistake in one of the scenes later in the game. Thankfully, it didn't turn out that way. I'll explain that more later. But yeah, this dude actually was super important to the game, but I didn't have any interaction with him past the warehouse scene, so I'm gonna put him in okay. And then we have Josh, one of the members of Jericho. Listen, he was more level-headed. He was more kind of aligned with how I was trying to approach the game, making the decisions as Marcus. I wanted things to be as peaceful as possible while still trying to get androids a little bit of freedom and respect from humans. Josh was a little bit more kind of in line with how I was doing things. Like, hey, let's take it slow. Let's approach it this way. Let's not go just guns blazing all the time. So yeah, him and I agreed on a lot of things, but then there were times where he didn't agree with me, which was a little confusing. But my favorite thing about him is the scene where they're getting ready to walk out and do the first march on the street. And he's like, yo, I will die and lay down my life if it means that people like me can have their freedom one day. And I was like, all right, this dude legit. So that was pretty cool. He was fine. Like, I didn't love his character or anything like that, so I'm gonna put him in the front of okay, but W companion through the Jericho stuff. And then Kamski, oh my goodness. Okay, a lot of people I feel like would say like, oh, he's trash, he's a terrible character, because like that's just how they feel about him as a person or whatever. I don't base my decisions off of that. I base it off of what they added to the game and things like that. And dude, this was amazing. Okay, the scene where you go to his house and he's trying to put Connor to the test of like, do androids actually have feeling or not? And oh my gosh, that was one of the most awesome scenes in the game, in my opinion. And I think his character was just perfect for it. It was spot on of what matched the game and what you felt like was going to happen. So yeah, I think his character was freaking awesome. In fact, I think he should go in the front of good even before Alice. Like that was an awesome part of the game. And then we have Kara, our beloved Kara. Okay, so here's what I have to say about Kara. So there's an interesting way that I think about how I feel about Kara and everything, how she fit into the game, because like I said, my main priority was to make sure Alice was okay. That came above everything else, even though I really wanted to help the androids out, and so the decisions with Marcus and Connor were very, very important, but those felt more stressful to me sometimes than protecting Alice. And so it was a different feeling and a different kind of stress when I was playing as Kara. I know, like, you know, she didn't really ultimately make decisions that kind of help the androids out or whatever, but without her part in the story and her trying to help Alice out, it gave you an opportunity to see like androids do have these feelings, and they're willing to do what they can to protect people that they care about, protect their own. And so without her part of the story, like you wouldn't have seen that as much. And so it's different because you're not using Kara to try and get freedom for the androids or whatever, but you see the human type of emotions and things that were shown through her character. So ultimately she was almost just as important, if not as important, as the other main characters in the game. With that being said, she's definitely one of the amazing characters. Gosh, between her and Hank, it's so close. And like, I don't want to put like all of the main characters like at the front, because you obviously get to see them the most. But man, yeah, Kara was, her and Hank could go either way. And then we have Leo. I just realized that Carl is not on this list, which is very disappointing. I feel like there's several characters on here that could be on here. So just a quick side note, if Carl was on this list, he would be my second favorite character in the water bottle. Can you stop making noise? Carl would be my second favorite character in the entire game. That might sound crazy, but Dude, that scene in the beginning of the game where him and Marcus are together, Marcus gives him his breakfast. I chose to go play the piano, so Marcus is playing piano. Carl rolls up, talking about Marcus is going to have to one day take care of himself and realize that the world is not going to be on his side. And then later they go out to the studio and Marcus, draws on the canvas or whatever. And I chose to do like something where, he's closed his eyes, he's trying to picture something he's never seen, and I chose to do identity because it was obvious already at that point of the game that they were trying to figure out, like, they knew there was something inside of them that was more than just a robot and an android. And so not only was that like a very cool scene in the game, but like it's also relatable, man, because I have spent a lot of my life where I didn't feel like I fit into a certain group. Like, I know who I am as a person, but I felt like I haven't had my place up until recently. And so that really hit home in a way for me. Carl, just like the way he had the relationship with Marcus and everything, like it was just so good. So yeah, Carl would probably be like in second for me. But back to Leo, Leo added, a pretty interesting dynamic there with the crazy son, the drug addict son that just wanted money. At least through my playthrough, at the end of the game, Marcus went back to see Carl, and there was a message there from Leo saying, "Hey dad, I'm getting out of the hospital, I want to come see you, I'm ready to get my life back together." And so that was a cool, like, hopeful part towards the end of the game that, hey, Leo, he was going to turn his life around. So again, I'm basing this off of my playthrough. I am going to put Leo here kind of in the middle of okay. Again, I know this guy was really important in other outcomes and things like that, but as far as mine, he wasn't. And then we have Luther, the homie Luther. Okay, I ain't gonna lie, I was pissed off at Luther when we first got introduced to him. Will you do something? Because I'm like, hey, can't you see that Kara and Alice are in trouble here at Zlatko's house? And he just like, all right, I'll do whatever Zlatko says. But thankfully he came around, man. Luther clutched up big time for us. Yeah, because of that, like, I did everything I could through the rest of the playthrough to help him get to the border and everything. He was a huge asset to Kara and Alice, but I also cared about him as well. So because of that, he's going to go right behind Kamsky in good. I think he was a great character. And it's really hard not to put a lot of these in amazing, but I think amazing should be like favorite, it's one character. Amazing, it shouldn't be 6 or 7, even though there are plenty of characters that I feel like could go in amazing. I think amazing should be saved for like 3 or 4 that are like close to being at the top, but don't like confuse it if I put them in good and it seems like I don't really actually like them. That's not true at all. I think these guys, especially even Alice, could potentially go in amazing. I just want to save the top couple of tiers there as like the best of the best. And then we have Marcus, the homie Marcus. So like I said, the scene with him and Carl was very impactful, and that's when I realized, like, okay, this is going to be an amazing game right here. Marcus was a big part of that. And then the scene after he gets shot, he's in the junkyard kind of place where he has to replace parts and everything, and then he climbs out to the top and he gets to the top and he's like the main character and he walks off. Like, that was one of the most cinema moments in a video game that I've ever seen, and that's when I was like, this is the guy. From there on, he was my favorite character. He had so much weight and responsibility on his shoulders, and I felt like if I were in that situation, knowing me as a person, I would have very much been like Marcus was throughout this whole thing, just having such a hard time figuring out like what is the best way to do this, knowing that we're gonna lose, androids in the process, but that's not okay. Like, we need to try and save everybody. Like, it was crazy, man. Marcus was such an amazing character. And again, I know people are gonna probably hate me for saying that and think that Connor should be first. They're so close. They're so close. But me personally, I had to go with Marcus. And then we have North. All right, so North was a very good character because I felt like as Marcus, you had North on one shoulder and you had Josh on the other shoulder, like the bad and the good, right? And North wasn't all bad. I'm not saying that, but she was very much on the complete opposite end of how Josh was. And you know, North was like guns blazing, let's rush them, let's shoot them, let's do this, do that. And it's like, whoa, hold on, let's consider our options here. What's the best outcome for us as a group of androids in Jericho? So I think sometimes she was a little bit too pushy, but still ultimately, even though her and Marcus didn't always see eye to eye, like they were connected and obviously kind of fell for each other. North was cool. I actually, even though I didn't agree with her as much as Josh, I'm gonna put her in front of Josh. Sorry, Josh. And then we have the FBI agent. I cannot remember this guy's name. Forgive me for that. But yeah, I mean, listen, again, I think people could say, oh, he's a bad character or whatever because he was trying to go against the androids. Him and Gavin's position, I think, were very similar, but it was perfectly done by the FBI agent. I think that with Gavin, it was like the same thing that the FBI guy was trying to do, and that made sense. Gavin was just annoying and really didn't need to be a part of anything. The FBI guy he did everything. Like, obviously, even though I didn't agree with him or whatever, I think his character was very well done. Yeah, let's see. So people might actually be a little confused or disagree with me here, but I think he should go in the good category. I'm going to put him behind Alice because he added a lot to this game, and I think the way that they incorporated him into everything, it was pretty well done. And then we have Ralph. All right, so I chose as Kara to stay the night in the house. I thought I had made the worst decision possible when I did that because then Ralph pulls the knife on Alice. Thankfully, I got out of that. Okay, we got out of the house, but I was like, oh my gosh, I may have just made the worst mistake ever. Thankfully, things worked out, and even though him and Kara and Alice had their disagreements at times, Ralph clutched up for us. Listen, obviously felt bad for him too because he got kind of messed up from his owner and everything. So I'm gonna put him kind of in the middle of okay here, right behind Josh. Hey, and then we got Rose. All right, so Rose, man, I was just waiting for something to come back to haunt us when I decided to talk to Rose and everything like that. By the way, I'm still waiting on my plate of spaghetti. Like, where's my plate? But man, Rose was such a W character, man. Like, I don't know if the writers and developers of the game intentionally did this or not, but this is just my way of thinking about it. Everything at that point in the game was just like such a critical decision. Everything was kind of going against androids and things like that. There was so much pressure on the androids, and I was hesitant to trust Rose because of that, because I was like, this seems too good to be true. It wasn't. Like, everything she did was with good intentions. And so like I said, I don't know if this was intended, but it was like so refreshing, and it was like super impactful to see somebody just care that much and be willing to, kind of risk their own life to try and help androids and things like that. So because of that, man, Rose is gonna go second in good here. She was awesome. And then we got the homie Simon. All right, so as I said earlier, I made the decision to not bring the warehouse guy along. By doing that, it could have been detrimental to Marcus, because I realized later on, had I not chose to save Simon at the TV station, there's a lot of webs and twists and turns to get to the outcome that I did. But I guess to give context very quickly, when Connor went to investigate the scene at the TV station, I went to talk to the TV station androids instead of going on the roof, which now I realize, had I done that, Simon would have been caught. Because I didn't, Simon escaped. He goes back to Jericho. He's there for the march on the streets. And then he sacrificed his life for Marcus, because Marcus risked his life to save him at the TV station. So had I not done that, or had I been Connor and gone to the roof, plus not bringing the warehouse guy along, I'm pretty pretty sure Marcus would have died in that scene, which would have destroyed me and made me just rah in rage of of what happened. Listen, Simon, W guy, W character, he saw that, you know, Marcus cared about him and was willing to risk his life, and so he ultimately gave his life for Marcus and the cause that they were working towards. And so really his part of the story is a lot bigger than most in Jericho. So I am going to put him in good right behind Alice. And then we have Todd. Okay, I listen, I hated Todd. Okay, I did. I hated Todd. I hated the way he treated Alice and Kara. Through my playthrough, like, I was like, good, he's dead. But I actually saw in a video what happens if you didn't shoot Todd in the beginning of the game, and you go to the bus station and you end up bumping into him there, and he kind of like breaks down and apologizes for the whole situation, realizes like, I have to change things, I had to turn my life around. And whether or not he actually, you know, does that or not is kind of up in the air, but you do kind of see like, and you saw it too kind of at the beginning, that he didn't necessarily want to be the way he was, but he wasn't willing to give up the drugs and the drinking and things like that to get to that point. You know, again, his addition to the game, I feel like, was very much needed in the beginning to kind of give context as to what was going on and the hatred between humans and androids. He was a very, very important part of the beginning of the game. He's gonna go right behind Alice. And last but not least, we have the blue-haired Tracy from Eden Club. You might say, well, I mean, they didn't have a huge part. Like, obviously, there was a whole scene kind of around her, but like, this is where I feel like my relationship with Connor and Hank kind of started to form, because I decided not to shoot Tracy or the other deviant, and I was, as soon as I made that decision, I was like, oh man, Hank's gonna hate me even more. But he was like, he respected that decision, and I think that was the first time that he realized like, hey, maybe these androids actually do have a little bit of emotion and they have some human feeling in them. And so I think that started it, and from there I feel like our relationship got better and better. So really, without blue-haired Tracy, who knows if that would have ever happened. So because of that, her character was very important, and again, she goes in good. All right, so that's it. That's it for this tier list. I know this kind of left out some characters, which is unfortunate. Carl specifically, like I said, he would have been an amazing, and there's some other characters that I feel like would have been pretty high up on the list, but I can only go off of what this says. Marcus, number one, Connor a very close second, Hank and Karen amazing. And like I said, so many of these good characters could have been higher, but I like to save that amazing tier as like, you know, these are the ones that could potentially be in the running for my favorite. And then, you know, some that didn't have as much time in the game. Only one bad character, I think that's pretty good. And then Amanda, she's down here, you know, but whatever. But I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I've posted a video every single day this year, and it has been so much work. I'm exhausted all the time. I stream 4 to 5 times a week on Twitch, plus I upload 2 clips to here and TikTok every day, so I am actually exhausted. So any support that you can show for all the work that I've put in is very much appreciated. If you would like to catch the streams live, there will be a link down below to that. And yeah, I just appreciate you being here. Please let me know if you would like to see anything like this in the future and what other videos you would like to see from me. But that is it. Please just go play this game. I feel like anybody who's watching this has played it before, but if you haven't, please do. And if you have, go play it again. It's so good. All right, God bless y'all. I will see you on the next one. Peace.